Here's the scenario.
Kathleen Kennedy has locked the three of us in a writer's room, and we cannot leave until we come out with a pitch for Kenobi Season 2. There are time codes down in the description if you'd like to jump around different points in the episode. We're also joined by Matt. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to everyone, where we review content across all mediums of media, movies, TV shows, video games, and beyond to give you the most interesting behind-the-scenes insights, storytelling techniques, all that jazz, and more.
We go over everything from Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, Disney, and more. Without further ado, let's jump right into the show.
All right, so my first question is, what does this room look like that we're locked in Kathleen Kennedy's basement? Is it like a Lucasfilm like sex dungeon kind of thing? Like,
why are you
interesting that your
sex
first thought was sex dungeon?
Well, I was thinking,
yeah, like
it is interesting, but I'm thinking, would Slave Leia be more an acceptable kink there? Like they have the props for it, maybe.
Jake, are you like okay? Like
I'm down
you
bad,
jumped
man.
straight into the sexual undertone.
Anyways, let's forget about that. So we're pitching Kenobi Season 2. The point of this, the kind of outline, I talked about this with these guys before, we're gonna kind of spitball a bunch of like random ideas out, stuff that would be cool to see, and kind of go off that. And then the second half, we're gonna be kind of pitching and forming like an outline of a script that we would like ideally pitch at the end. We would have like this outline we would pitch to Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm, and they would make us millionaires.
I also like how we didn't make any edits to like the room that we're in. We're just kind of stuck in the sex dungeon now.
Oh yeah,
so
so
that's
it's
how
canon now. It's been too long, we can't change it.
That's the only thing in Kathleen Kennedy's basement.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
We're just stuck there now, so yeah.
All right, so let's kind of talk about, I guess, where we wrapped up with Kenobi Season 1, right?
Yep.
Also, Matt's here. Hello. I feel like I've been kind of talking over you. How's it going?
Oh, I'm glad to be back,
Yeah, Matt was on our Rebels episode right before Kenobi came out. We watched Rebels for the first time, Daniel and I, and we kind of talked about that. So Matt is a Star Wars expert, so I feel like it was a good guest to have on this episode. So yeah, Kenobi kind of ended where I feel like it was a complete story, So I think that's a challenge we got to approach here is I don't want to tell Season 2 just because I want it to be. I think we should try to make a story that makes sense and adds value to our understanding of Kenobi.
How long should it be? How long do we want this to be? Do we want it to be 6 episodes again, or do we want it to be shorter, or do we want it to be longer?
I mean, it depends on the story, but 6 episodes is kind of what Disney Plus greenlights a lot, Kathleen.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it also depends on the runtime of the episode too. At least when I was watching episode or Kenobi and thinking about all of the episodes and whatnot, and thinking about just Kenobi's story in general, this does kind of seem like a side quest in and of itself.
Yeah.
And bear with me just for a second for this, because when we think of Kenobi in the desert, meditating, figuring out who he is, trying this transition, but we think of him trying to evolve into this new state. And so this whole him going off Tatooine and rescuing Leia, this does seem completely off script from what we've kind of just associated with Kenobi in this time frame in between episode 3 and episode 4. For me, it kind of seemed this is an amazing story, or it's the Kenobi DLC package.
Okay. Interesting.
I like that definition of it. Because it fits, it makes sense. I know what you mean.
Wait, sorry, but just go back to your thing. I like to imagine in the sex dungeon that we're in, just on the wall, it says, this has to be 6 episodes or something. I don't know. We don't have to do that, but I'm just imagining that's the only other thing on the wall.
I mean, to me, the length doesn't necessarily matter.
It's about how you use it.
As long as it benefits the story.
I need to get my head out of the gutter this episode.
Jake's in the dungeon. Daniel and I are going to talk Kenobi. Jake's going to come in with some
maybe it's just me locked in the sex dungeon. You guys are actually in a writer's room. I'm just shouting through a vent. Okay, but yeah, so Kenobi kind of ended. He forgave himself for the fall of the Empire. And I think that was a bridge we talked about last time. I feel like Kenobi was a story of Obi-Wan forgiving himself. Yeah. At least Season 1. Forgiving himself for the events of episode 3. And accepting what is the new, and kind of forgiving himself so that he can become kind of Alec Guinness's version of Obi-Wan in episode 4, which is kind of more jovial and just laid back, not super depressed as Obi-Wan was in the beginning of the Kenobi series. So what needs to happen, I feel like, again, to bridge from where he's at the end of Kenobi to episode 4? Because I think Qui-Gon's training is something that they kind of left open-ended. Would you guys want to see that in a Season 2?
Oh, absolutely. And I
feel like it needs to be touched on, definitely.
I think that needs to be essentially the start of Season 2. And I definitely think that it needs to not start off well. I think it needs to not go great.
Okay.
I'm imagining that their training sequence is they just have like the background music of Mulan's "Make a Man Out of You," and it's just Obi-Wan trying to do all of these things. Qui-Gon just like looking at him disappointed all the time. And I mean, hey, Disney owns both, so we could see it happen. We see this the most ambitious crossover in history.
That is true.
History. That would be interesting. Just like a kind of a montage and. I mean, I that's the thing. I think the Qui-Gon training should be an element, but do you think like the whole thing should be like him training and like he finally gets it at the end, or is it just an element of it?
What parts of it? Let me say it like this: how do you train for that? How do you train to become a Force Ghost?
You lift rocks. You have Qui-Gon's Force Ghost on his back, and he's doing flips through the desert. Like
no, but as the writers, right? I'm saying that's a question you then have to answer.
I think does he maybe have to go off world again? Because I think that's something that like I was really scared with Kenobi. I was like, I do not want another Tatooine thing since we've had so much of it. Yeah. Do you think like maybe he has to go to like in the Clone Wars arc where that planet Yoda goes to, where he like really connects with those like Force spirits? Does Qui-Gon have to take Obi-Wan there so he can fully connect, and maybe it leads him on another thing?
I do like that, and I like the going off Tatooine, but then there becomes at some point you have to question, okay, Obi-Wan's gone all the time. Is he really watching Luke? Like,
that's
is he
true.
making sure that Luke is staying safe? Like, he can't do it all the time. I do think that, like, maybe, like, in his training, like, he's not making enough progress and he has to go to, like, this.
Yeah, like, forces him, but he doesn't want to kind of thing.
Exactly. Kind of something like that. So that you still have that element of, like, him watching over Luke and protecting him. Because, like, I feel like that was the big question with, like, this whole, like, he was protecting Leia, but, like, at the same time, he left Luke vulnerable, and that was kind of how it ended a little bit. It was like he didn't exactly. I mean, Owen and
Baru,
did a great job defending Luke, but like
Baru's
at the same
a bad
time, we've learned a lot about those two characters, but at the same time, like Obi-Wan's got to be there at some points. At least that's the thing,
what I'm thinking. Like I feel like
we've seen it in the comics too.
He was ready to like accept. Like I feel like Obi-Wan at the end of that was like ready to like. He seemed like he was gonna accept like that he wasn't gonna have anything to do with Luke. Like he said explicitly, he's like outright said like you and Baru, like to Owen, he's like you and Baru are like enough, and he was like ready to walk away until Owen was like, you want to check him out? So is there another transition? Maybe like he is off world because that's his mentality he's at now, and then something happens that like Luke is taken. I don't want to have just a repeat like Leia was taken first season, Luke was taken second season, but Luke's in danger that like brings Obi-Wan back, maybe that like he's like forced to reassess.
I feel like a better conflict here to avoid that like duping of the original season would be to question his attachment to Luke.
Ooh.
You gotta keep in mind that's a whole concept with the Jedi is you can't have attachment, right? But he's obviously attached to these kids. It helped him in his time of need and also allowed him to finally be able to connect and see with Qui-Gon. But now that brings on the question: is he now technically in a way breaking away from the Jedi code? I'm not saying relying on those attachments, but having them be.
Yeah, I mean that kind of seemed like his source of power in Episode 6. What like that got him out of the low ground, like the hole. Yeah. Like that's his attachment is what gave him power. I think that's kind of an interesting theme of like Luke's story, like in the original trilogy, like Yoda tells him like about all this like attachment like is horrible and like you should don't go save your friends, so you'll just put him in more danger. And I think it's Luke's attachment that like humanizes him and makes him a great character and like hero to his friends. So maybe Obi-Wan kind of starting to see that,
go through an arc like that where he's like it's okay to have attachments.
Maybe.
And I think that would definitely be like great with Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon was kind of played that line. And it was, you didn't really see that as much in the movies, but just like in other novels and just like talking about the character, like Qui-Gon definitely like, I mean, Qui-Gon had the skills to be on the Jedi Council, and yet he never was on the Jedi Council because I think he played the line more with like that gray Jedi area. And I think
he didn't agree always with their views.
He didn't agree.
Exactly. Yeah. And so Obi-Wan learning from him, I think would kind of transition Obi-Wan from the Doctrine Jedi Council that what he was to now what would inspire Luke in his training and his philosophy.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I think it's also something just to be talked about, taking a step back at the grand scheme of things. Like when we heard there's going to be a live action like Kenobi series and then they announced like Hayden Christensen's coming back, expectations just shoot up. I feel like it's really exciting thinking about the possibilities of like Luke and Vader like coming back together, but I don't think every story has to be like this crazy spectacle, like this huge galaxy impacting event. Where the Clone Wars specializes was these like kind of smaller stories that like added a little bit of like depth to what the Clone Wars were. And they weren't always like these huge stories that had tons of impact on like the grand scheme of Star Wars. And I'm worried if we keep doing these grand scheme of Star Wars things, like if we do season 2 like that, it undermines like the separation between this and when Vader sees him next. And he's like, I haven't felt this presence in like however long. And like, I guess my question I'm trying to get at is like, do you think we could do like a smaller story for Kenobi season 2? And would we bring back Vader for that or not?
No need for Vader. We close that loop here. That's the whole reason why they set up the way they did. There should be no more interaction with Vader until A New Hope.
You think the Emperor kind of said that? Yeah.
I think they kind of like how they framed Vader and Palpatine, like that interaction. And what I would kind of like be really interested to see in Kenobi season 2 was that Vader does still try to continue to pursue Obi-Wan, but then you have Palpatine jumping in and Palpatine and Vader having like a kind of fight or dispute. And then you can kind of like that, you could kind of bring in some more of like the action and the drama. And at that point, like starting Vader to kind of like taper off a little bit.
Yeah, could you do like maybe Vader is in the series, but like
it's like a totally different storyline,
not associated with like Kenobi's story. Like there's dual storylines where like it's still about Kenobi because Vader's interested in like pursuing him, but like Palpatine and Vader are in their own thing, and then Kenobi's doing whatever like training with Qui-Gon and whatever his story needs to be, and is not even aware of like Vader like pursuing him. And like I think it'd be tough to challenge like having those not intersect and that be interesting to audiences.
Yeah, in that case, I feel like it would just be better if we did like a Vader series then.
Well, no. Here's what I'm saying with this is that I'm saying at the beginning, you keep them intersected, and so you have like the Vader and the Kenobi storylines, like them match, at least like Vader trying to get into Kenobi's storyline. Like,
but then the Emperor pulls him out.
But then the Emperor pulls him out and blocks him, and then you kind of get that slight fade away so that you get to focus back on Kenobi, and that way you like close that loop. Because I mean, at the end, Vader was still trying to get Kenobi. He just had this huge fight with his master. I mean, he's going to be doing some training, but like he's definitely going to want the redemption and to go after him again. He needs something to stop him and redirect his focus.
Right. Interesting.
At the same time here too, I think because Palpatine does this a lot, canon and not canon. He tests Vader to see if he's still good enough to be his boy, you know?
Yeah.
So it'd be cool to see if they were bringing in, like, I remember one time there was like this, it was like a clone of Darth Maul that he had to fight at one time. You know, like just random stuff like that to be like, okay, can we see if Vader's actually still up to the metal to like follow the Emperor's orders? There's other times too where the Emperor put Vader underneath, like Vader messed up. And there was one time where he put him underneath this other general. Eventually got to the point to where the general kept on asking him to do like these impossible tasks, but Vader kept on doing them because he's Vader, right? Like taking over a planet like single-handedly and so on, right? Eventually got to the point to where there's like a huge space like crab thing, and the general's like, take out the biggest threat, and then Vader killed the general because he saw him as the biggest threat. That's how he got back in line with the Emperor. So it'd be cool to see something like that, where you'd have
like Vader's like a genie, where like you gotta watch your words for your wish kind of thing.
Just going off of Daniel's point with like him like bringing up Maul and everything. Like I know that there was like some comic at some point that was like Vader and Maul like met and they fought to kind of like see who would be like the more powerful Sith. And I think like Vader won it. And I love this one line because it really like brings out truly Vader. It's like Darth Maul was like, how could you beat me? Like, what do you hate so much that could give you all this power? And Vader just says, myself. And so that would bring in huge, like, emotional depth to the character that we haven't, like, seen as much on the big screen. Because, like, Vader on the big screen has kind of just been more, I mean, I guess we see it like, later in the original trilogy, but, like, just this powerhouse of, like, mercilessness. But then you still, like, feel some of that remorse that kind of, like, would tie in that, you know, that transition from Anakin to Vader. Even like in Kenobi, like he's Vader, but like it's still recent enough.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we talked about in the final fight of Kenobi. I think we do see a little bit of Vader talking about like that hatred of himself when he's like has the mask like half cut and he's like telling Kenobi, I did this to myself. And I think that is not to like relieve Obi-Wan of like Obi-Wan's guilt. It does that as like a byproduct, but I feel like that was to reinforce in Vader that like in Anakin that like he did this to himself like this, so that's what fuels him to like keep fighting.
Yeah,
so that's an interesting dynamic. But speaking of Maul, I think a cool moment, if we could somehow fit it in, we talked about this in Rebels actually in this episode, in our episode where like all three of us were there, but like we talk about Maul, how he tries the same move, spoilers for Rebels, but he tries the same move against Obi-Wan that he used against Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan like perfectly counters it. I think it would be interesting if there's maybe like a nod or a reference to when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are training. Maybe they're like reflecting on Qui-Gon's death, and they just talk about what they could have done differently in that situation that Maul got the upper hand. And so maybe that foreshadows like how Kenobi's so able to expertly like defend off Maul because he was predicting it. So I think that could be a cool tie-in moment maybe.
And I like that idea, but I think it needs to be more poetic. And what I mean by that is instead of them like just sitting down and like reflecting on specifically Qui-Gon's death or what Qui-Gon needs to teach to Obi-Wan in a moment like that.
A Mr. Miyagi moment. Maybe he just tells him to like
no, he needs to tell him
or something like brush his emu llama thing.
That he needs to think about how his enemy is thinking. As a Sith, as somebody who can't have those attachments, that has that much hate, what are they willing to do? What are they going to do? And what are they going to try? So that's what Qui-Gon needs to teach. It's not just how do you defeat Maul specifically, not how did I die? It's how is he thinking?
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think there just should be some tie-in connection somehow between like those two moments. I think would be cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be explicitly Qui-Gon being like, "This is how you would defend that," but like just something that like gets that across somehow. And yeah, it could be poetic. Yeah, but I think that'd just be a cool moment within Qui-Gon's training somehow if they just like are talking about that or whatever.
Oh, that'd for sure be an Easter egg in like a YouTube compilation of some person's analysis of that episode.
Yeah.
What
other ideas like do we have just for I don't know, just ideas we want in there, and like maybe we can start moving into like thinking about a structure for like a season.
I have one last kind of hot take item that I could see potentially happening. I could see Kenobi trying to train our fallen Inquisitor, Grand Inquisitor, who's
Reva.
now become nothing, to kind of try to train her again, to kind of like be like, oh yes, I have hope, but then at that point hope. Like tries to train her to kind of like at least fight off or show that like the Jedi aren't fully dead, but then that ends terribly, and that kind of leads Obi-Wan to that more trauma and him being like, okay, I need to back off, Jedi's fully dead. Because I'm just thinking of like, because they left that character open, and they definitely did. They're going to include her in the like I know that not a lot of fans enjoy how her character was portrayed. I have some hesitations with it. I mean, in my personal, this is more Vader than her character. Vader should have killed her. I'm sorry. There's no reason that Vader kept her alive. Come on, it's Darth Vader.
Dang, Vader, he messed up.
Vader killed younglings. She was a youngling. Like, come on. But anyway, I guarantee you there's already some way that she's going to be tied in and whatnot.
We have to think about her,
trying to tie her in to like how they could like move her in the future, like become Obi-Wan's new apprentice. That ends terribly. And then that kind of like leads Obi-Wan to that hesitation of furthermore not trying to train Luke.
Maybe just watching him over.
Later down the line. Yeah.
What's the actor's name? Cameron Monaghan?
The guy from Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah. Because we saw it in Rebels too when Ezra went to go see Obi-Wan. Jedi can find him.
That is true.
I don't think Reva should be apprentice to Obi-Wan in this way. I feel like Cal, in this case, if he was to connect with Obi-Wan and potentially her, Obi-Wan could guide him to her. That'd actually be a cool arc to see here. I think it'd be interesting to see how their band of misfits would kind of interact and take her on. You know what I mean? And then maybe...
Yeah.
Like, he has the goal of, like, trying to rebuild the Order. That's something that Jake already knows in the game. It'd be interesting to see how he could interact with somebody who's Force sensitive, but also gone through from the side of an Inquisitor, which he's already also faced at this point, I'm assuming. So...
Yeah, those two characters would be interesting paired together, but I don't know if that's necessary for, like, a Kenobi show. Like, maybe their own series, maybe, but
that's true.
I don't know if that would tie into Kenobi's story. But I do like that idea, just, like, maybe for another pitch practice or something, like kind of like a buddy cop, Reva and Cal Kestis or something. Okay, so we have Obi-Wan at the end of the Kenobi series. That's our starting point, where he like needs to do some training with Qui-Gon. Where does he need to get to? I don't want to reset him to like be depressed. I honestly did want to talk about this. I forgot about this. We talked about it on our podcast last week, but I want to see like Kenobi like get his little hut. I want to see him and Qui-Gon maybe like real estate shopping on the market. And like my roommate said, like maybe he does like a Jedi mind trick, like you will give me this house for half off or something like that.
Who says he doesn't build it?
True. Maybe it's him building it. Maybe that's part of his training with Qui-Gon. He's like, place this brick and like, I don't know.
Yeah, Qui-Gon just tells him like how to build it. He's like the architect there.
Honestly, that could be like a metaphor maybe of like
building a connection to the Force.
Yeah.
He pulls out the Lego instructions.
Yeah. So where does he like need to get to at the end of season 2? If that's like 6 episodes, let's say, or just whatever.
I guess that depends on how long you would want to extend the Kenobi show.
And also how much of a time jump there is between Kenobi's show versus season 2 versus New Hope, right? Because you still have, what, like 10 years there?
Yeah, I feel like we should go pretty close to season 1 of Kenobi. Like, I don't want to get too close to A New Hope, personally. Mm-hmm. Or it would be interesting if season 2 was like leading up to the events of like A New Hope maybe. And so like you that definitely could not have Vader in it. But like maybe seeing like Kenobi somehow influencing the events of Rogue One or something, like from behind the scenes pulling some strings. Or again, I don't want it to just connect to like for fan service. I want like Kenobi to like,
make
have
sense and work for the story.
Yeah.
What if it was like a year later, right?
After season 1?
Yeah, and he's been trying to train with Qui-Gon. He's still trying to heal, right? And he's also not doing so well with his training. Right, say he's trying to understand Qui-Gon's teachings, but he's having a hard time. Again, with what we were talking about before, with like the attachments and everything else that he's already gone through with Jedi training, right? So, what do you guys think about that? Does that seem like a logical jump there?
I don't know. I don't want to just again fully reset him to be sad again. Like maybe
I'm not saying he'd be sad. I'm just saying that
like,
he's.
Why would he be failing with these trainings though? Like that. I guess what's that he has to overcome to now? Because I guess he had to overcome forgiving himself to like be able to see Qui-Gon. Is like are we just gonna repeat something else? Like he now has to forgive himself for something else to like be able to do these trainings well or something.
I think it's a thing of understanding. It's not a thing of or forgiving himself. It's not. He's not at a point of like repenting or anymore.
Okay, then what does he? Like, why can't he understand it then?
That's what we have to get into.
I think part of it might just be letting go of his attachments to the old Jedi ways, Jedi Order, all of that stuff. You could potentially tie that in. That might be a little bit more of a stretch, especially considering how the first season ended and he kind of just gave it up altogether.
Yeah.
But he could have like that, I regained my abilities. Let's try this. Let's try to bring like a new order of Jedi. Let's try to like do it right this time. And then realizing that it's like that methodology of thinking or that ideology of thinking isn't going to work again. Like they failed for a reason.
I do like that way of thinking, but I'm thinking again back to what Dave Filoni said in Rebels with that fight with Maul. Like when Maul sees him, Filoni said that like Maul realizes this is a Jedi in hiding, and he's like one of the best of the best still. And I don't think like if he was in hiding, he'd be like trying to like reestablish the Jedi Order by like reaching out to other Jedi or like making a fuss about that. I think his main focus by the time he gets to I think talking this out, I think this might be the story. Again, kind of we mentioned earlier, but maybe an idea is like, so we see, remember in Rebels, he is like gung-ho, like I need to focus on Luke. Like I'm protecting this child. So that's 5 years after the events of season 1 of Kenobi. So it's 5 years before like A New Hope-ish, I think, right? And but at the end of Kenobi season 1, he pretty much says to Owen, like, like your protection enough. Like I'm gonna go off, do my own thing. So what happens that by the time Rebels is around, like he's like, I need to protect Luke, and like when Maul comes, he is like the first line of defense. Like, what does that change? I feel like there's a change there. Am I incorrect in thinking that?
No, you're right.
No, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you think that could be maybe the story we see then, like Kenobi trying to let go of Luke, like he said he was going to in season 1, and then he's doing training, and then something happens, like he has to go on this adventure, or like just realize that like Luke needs protection, and like kind of realize that is his new purpose for the rest of his life, maybe. Is that like maybe an outline of the story?
No, I think that'd be a great story. I guess that further goes back to my question of how long would we want to make Kenobi last? Like if we want Kenobi to last 2 seasons, boom, that's where we go. If we wanted to try to flesh it out a little bit more, I feel like you need to have something else in the middle that happens.
I would say 2 seasons, just because that's what we're locked in this basement. We can't come back to Kathleen and say, hey, we have 2 seasons. She's like, that's not what I asked for. Go back down.
Yeah.
Well, no, but you got to think in the future. Come on, man.
No, I know, but I think like we should try to make like the best season 2 story, and that's all we should be thinking about. Like I think, okay. and then like if we can maybe write ourselves out of a corner in another pitch practice and think of something else for season 3. But I think we should do just season 2.
Okay.
I like the direction that we're going with. Again, I don't want to repeat what happened with Leia, But I feel like the difference here is because it's Luke, and we already know that Obi-Wan's checking, is to see if he starts showing signs that he's force sensitive.
That's
a good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe
That could be what brings in the threat. Well, no, I like the duality. Like Jake was saying, like he's learning to get rid of those attachments with Luke, but then this happens, right? He's showing that he's force sensitive, which then gets him caught up in all this hoopla. So then Obi-Wan's like, I shouldn't be attached, but I also need to protect.
I don't know if Luke should show he's force sensitive, or at least he shouldn't be aware that he's showing, because I feel like in episode 4 we have to retain that Luke is like bewildered by anything related to the Force, the Jedi. Like he's there's only legends. So like if in Kenobi season 2, like he lifts like a rock or something, or and he's like, that's the Force, and then in episode 4 he's like, oh, what's the Force? Like that wouldn't make sense, you know?
It'd be more like luck, or like a set, like you could tell, like if somebody's like
midichlorians.
You know what I mean? Like somebody's gonna like whack him. He's like, "Whoo!" And then you like feel it, you know. But that's not gonna be like a force. He's not gonna think that it's the Force. He's just gonna think it's like a reflex,
right,
or like it's just a happenstance of luck, you know. Because the Force does work like that. I mean, it's theorized that Han Solo is force sensitive because how many times he's gone out of scraps and shit. You know?
Harrison Ford doesn't appreciate that. But so just before we move forward, so are we good? Kind of running with this story of kind of like Kenobi starts with like he's leaving Luke at the end of season 1, like leaving in protection of Owen and Aunt Beru, and like that's his main like that's his, he's accepted that. And then by the end of season 2, he has to like accept that his purpose and this like content with his purpose being like protecting Luke at all costs and like sacrificing the rest of his life to just watch over the boy, because maybe he realizes, maybe this season is him realizing that Luke is now like he views him as kind of the chosen one, is the one that can potentially bring balance and turn around what happened with the Empire and with Vader, which he ultimately does. So maybe it's Obi-Wan kind of foreseeing that.
That's what I'm trying to say with him starting to sense that he's force sensitive.
Right, but I don't even think it's not just like, it's not just going to be, I think that's part of it, but I don't think it's just going to be like, oh, he sees he's force sensitive, and then Obi-Wan's like, oh yes, like he is the chosen one. Like,
I know what you mean.
We have to see like maybe somehow like him seeing that, I don't know, that Luke has potential some other way.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you guys think Qui-Gon wants Obi-Wan to look after Luke?
Oh, I think Kenobi season 2 should open with Qui-Gon and Kenobi just talking, and Qui-Gon being like, "Yeah, my bad with Anakin, dude. Like that was a bad call on my end." And so yeah, maybe Obi-Wan wants, that's some conflict. Obi-Wan wants to like, he's coming around and wanting to like watch over Luke, but Qui-Gon's kind of like, I don't know.
You should
dude.
stay attached.
Or maybe it's flipped. Like maybe Obi-Wan's like, remember what happened last time, and Qui-Gon's like, dude, trust me. Like this time, like. I feel like we got to keep trying. Like Qui-Gon's again, like his North Star, like we have to keep trying. Like we can never give up no matter what. Like I'm dead, dude, but like I'm not giving up. Like I'm still here helping you kind of thing. I don't know.
I feel like Qui-Gon would definitely be more gung-ho. Like, hey, I trained you. I wanted to train. Like Anakin, like, yes, we messed up, but that means that it's our responsibility to make it right. So I think it would make more sense for Qui-Gon's character to be like more, we should do this together, rather than him being like, I don't know, maybe try to find this Jedi that I think like that I felt somewhere off in the world kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So in this case, then it's Qui-Gon that kind of lead Obi-Wan to seeing that Luke could potentially be how he sees it, the chosen one, even though Vader is the chosen. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The one to bring balance after all the bullshit.
Right. I don't think it should just be Qui-Gon again, like just telling him. Like I think we got to see it somehow, and like something happens. Like some of the events of season 2 are what leads like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to like see that Luke has like potential, and like Obi-Wan I think has to like ultimately sacrifice his like new like freedom he's gotten from season 1.
Camel.
No. He has now this sense of freedom of like weights lift off his shoulders now that he forgives himself for the events of episode 3 of like Revenge of the Sith. So maybe like he has to eventually like have this sacrifice moment where he's like sacrificing his life to now be the protector of Luke, and so we have to see like what changes that. I know I said that before. I was trying to get it out.
No, it's a good point to
make
about it. it's a good point to make.
So you're saying Obi-Wan's got to give up his 9 to 5 to go into babysitting? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
he
telling
can't be doing the meat slicer anymore. Okay, maybe it's the story of Obi-Wan just like becoming extremely wealthy and like going around gambling around Tatooine.
He's got a cantina band following him.
Yeah.
Like one of those floating platforms.
It's GTA 5, but in Mos Eisley.
Exactly.
I think part of Obi-Wan's training has to be learning how to suppress the ability for people to track Luke, because like we've seen in like the Clone Wars and other series that like people who are highly like responsive to the Force, like they can be tracked and they can be figured out. And like if the Jedi could do it, there's definitely the possibility. And the Emperor's tried to do it multiple times. So who's going to say that he's going to stop trying again? Right. So I think that needs to be a skill that Obi-Wan learns, and like that's part of his training. I know that doesn't solve a lot of the questions that we're asking, but I do think that that's something that needs to like be considered.
Yeah. All right. So we know where he starts and ends, and some elements that we want in the middle. So I'm sorry, I'm restating it, but he starts end of Kenobi season 1, ready to just leave kind of Luke behind in the hands and care of Owen and Aunt Beru. By the end, he needs to fully commit to giving up his life to just be Luke's protector from afar. So what happens in between there that frightens him or like makes him accept that, like it makes him realize that?
What if there's something that potentially has Luke become seduced to the dark side? And I'm not saying it like happens like in the series, but like an event happens where it's like it's clear that he could like go down the same path that Anakin did.
Right, like maybe like he does like a pod race or something, and I don't know. I'm not saying that, but I also want to be wary. Like I want to be wary because I remember a lot of people hated an episode in the sequel trilogy, like the way Luke's character went with like almost being seduced by the dark side. Like everyone was like, Luke is like this ideal, the hero. Like he is never swayed by the dark.
But that's after development. That's the thing. This is him when he's young.
Yeah.
So I think it'd make more sense at this point to where he's still like, again, he doesn't have that concept of the Force, like you said. So it'd make more sense if
he just goes around bullying kids like younglings, and Obi-Wan's like, oh my gosh, I remember that.
Like Obi-Wan needs to make sure that Luke, when his time does come, that he does have a good connection with the Force, like as in with the light side.
What if that temptation is a potentially Luke, him somehow finding out of Luke wanting to go and train at the Imperial Academy? Because that's the start of episode 4. Like Luke wants to go to the Imperial Academy and train. And I guarantee you that Obi-Wan and Owen are going to talk at some point in between. And then you have that possibility. And I guarantee you at the Imperial Academy, it'd only be a matter of time before Vader figured it out.
Yeah, if Luke Skywalker is just like in the database, he'd be like, who's that?
What's this guy's name? Palpy, whenever you told me.
Is there maybe an event or something that brings the Empire to Tatooine again?
Well, I think the whole reason why Luke wants to join the Imperial Navy or Air Force
to be a pilot. So what? Maybe we see Luke being inspired to be a pilot in the beginning of this, and like or something.
And we know that Owen definitely didn't want him to follow in his father's path, and knowing that his father was a renowned pilot, I feel like that whole piloting Imperial Academy might be our link.
We see him on the top of the thing when Obi-Wan's like creepily spying on him with the binoculars, like in season 1, like he already is like kind of like a pilot. So maybe, I think that's a good link.
He also saves Owen and Obi-Wan later on. This is a comic. I don't know if it's canon or not, but he actually does fly like their local shuttle to save them from Black Krrsantan. So
maybe Black Krrsantan can be in there. I forgot it because that he is. So what is Black Krrsantan's story in connection to Obi-Wan in the comics? Does anyone know?
I think it was just somebody had him be like, "Hey, hunt down this Jedi," and then like he do
maybe that's Vader asking. That's his side hustle.
Yeah,
true.
He's hiring bounty hunters because he can't directly do it.
When Palpatine stops him, he sends Black Krrsantan to go find Obi-Wan.
Okay, and I mean, I don't want to just repeat. I was gonna say maybe what if like Luke is captured, or I don't know. I don't want to like by Krrsantan. I don't want to copy that though. Maybe Obi-Wan is in trouble, and Luke, having made this subtle connection with him, comes in like
saves the day for him.
I don't want to say the day because it feels like in episode 4 he doesn't really know him that well, so I think we've got to keep that relationship kind of vague. But maybe he's just like stumbles across it or something, and like tries to help out. I don't know. So some elements we've got so far. I'm just gonna write some stuff down. We have Qui-Gon apologizing. That's the opening scene for Anakin. My bad, bro.
Yo, my guy, sorry about that. My
Obi-Wan in the beginning is ready to leave Luke's protection entirely up to Owen and Beru. So by the end, Obi-Wan has to devote his entire life's purpose to being Luke's guardian. Maybe first episode's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have gone off world. Like it is like a year later, and his training's taken him off world to practice, like to learning about like being a Force ghost and stuff. And then something happens, like Black Krrsantan is on Tatooine at that time or something, and then when he gets back, I don't know. But we also have like Luke potentially interested in joining the Imperial Academy.
How old would he be at this time? Because right now he's what, like 10, so that'd be 11?
He's 10.
And what age was Luke in New Hope again? Do we know that?
Like 19, I think.
19,
20.
okay. What's the college system in Tatooine? At what point had most people left?
I don't know. I feel like, well, his friends, I think, leave when they're like 19 or something like that.
In New Hope, I remember Beru's like, most of his friends are already gone.
So like 18 probably. So
he had a really good career counselor.
Yeah.
The only reason he stayed on the farm is because Owen forced him. He's like, "Oh, we'll do it next season. Oh, next season," you know.
Yeah.
But the duality of that is he didn't want to put Luke in danger, and he was like, "Well, we're good here, so why does he need to go anywhere else?" You know.
Right. How does Luke get seduced by like the Imperials, or how does Obi-Wan eventually want to? I don't know. This is hard. Oh my gosh. Want to devote his entire purpose to being Luke's guardian from afar, because maybe in the beginning does maybe he like leave for a while and it just feels off to him, or like does he stay on Tatooine this whole time?
No, I think he's got to leave Tatooine at least at some point. So I think like we could probably like say like an episode of like Obi-Wan leaving, going potentially meeting some new characters, figuring that out.
Maybe Quinlan Vos, because they talked about him in the.
Ooh, that could be a good character.
Yeah, Quinlan Vos was in Clone Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan interacted in Clone Wars too. Like they had I know they at least had one episode together.
Yeah.
Can you give a little rundown about his character, Matt, as much like whatever you know about him?
Yeah, so Quinlan Vos was essentially like, I don't know if this is going to be like exactly right, but like a bounty hunter Jedi kind of thing. And like a bounty hunter Jedi as in like more, he went rogue more often. Like
he did a lot of guerrilla warfare more, right?
A lot
more fighting
like
style.
that, and like spy missions. And then there was also, because I think like the big thing with Quinlan Vos, and again, I'm not 100% sure on his character arc, but that like he was like kind of like trying to figure out a lot more of the Sith and like learn more from them. And there was some questions within the Jedi Order of, did Quinlan Vos turn to the dark side, and now he's kind of become like a double agent kind of thing. Figuring out where his true loyalties really led.
Maybe he goes off world to do training with Qui-Gon, and Quinlan Vos is there, and they kind of like reconnect. Maybe there's some elements of talks about trying to restart the Jedi Order, but like it doesn't come to fruition or anything. I think that'd be a cool maybe opening. Maybe like he starts off, it's been like a few months or like a year, and Obi-Wan is ready to leave Luke and Owen and Beru's protection, and so he's off world working with Qui-Gon and Quinlan Vos maybe training.
I feel like that would be a really good conversation, because Quinlan, I feel like in that case would want to, he's like rogue-ish. He probably would still be on the path of like, hey, let's restart the Order. But I feel like it'd be good for Obi-Wan at this point to be like, no, that's a terrible idea. So then at that point, you have to bring up the question of how can you be a Jedi without your Order?
And maybe by the end he finds he's a Jedi because he has this purpose of like going after Luke, maybe. So maybe that's a question he's constantly battling throughout this whole season. He's like, what's my purpose now if I'm not going to restart the Jedi Order? Because I know I don't want to do that. But then he finds it in the end with being Luke's guardian. All right, I definitely think we're on the right track, which is exciting.
Yeah, I think Quinlan definitely adds that more radical side, like trying to break down some of those old Jedi Order ties that potentially Qui-Gon even couldn't do to Obi-Wan.
Right.
Doesn't he also have like mad hose?
What?
I'm trying to remember from
Daniel's
Clone
back in
Wars
the
and
sex
comics.
dungeon.
Yeah, Daniel just looked to his right and was like, oh yeah, I forgot where we were at. PG-13, rated R, season 2 of Kenobi.
The season opener for Kenobi season 2. Obi-Wan takes death sticks. The rest is off the rails.
I was talking with my mom about that, and she was like, it's kind of crazy how like it goes from Ewan McGregor, Kenobi, and like 10 years later he's like Alec Guinness, pretty old. I was like, it's probably those death sticks. That's what Daniel always says. Okay, so does something pull him back to Tatooine, or does he just go back? Like, does Owen call him like, yo, it's going down? Or does he just happen to go back and then like certain events take place?
What if Owen,
maybe that's
Luke,
an inciting
and Beru
incident.
go off world, like a field trip?
Oh,
like family
what?
vacation thing.
You think Owen? I don't think Owen and Brew. I don't think that's in their characters.
Them being moisture farmers, their entire whole lifestyle is based on Tatooine. Like other planets have water.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think of like how would you get Luke off world? You know,
do we need Luke
in a way that he's
I don't
not
think,
like
I don't
in
think
danger.
Luke goes off world because I don't think he's ever been off world before episode 4. I think Luke
that's right.
stays
That's right.
Tatooine.
Yeah.
Because I think that's also his driving force for wanting to go into the Imperial Academy to get off Tatooine.
Right, yeah. So maybe like we see him kind of getting sick of being... Maybe he's getting into his like rebellious teen years and he's kind of getting sick of being like on Tatooine and he's starting to meet these friends that we hear about in the later episodes that like go off world eventually. So maybe we start to see him and their connection and how they also are maybe like pilots or like they hang out at Tashi Station. So, and maybe he gets into some sort of trouble there and it draws a little too much attention, just being like a rowdy teen.
He meets Boba Fett's moped squad, and he learns. I'm just gonna stop it there because I do not want to see them again.
Yeah,
no. But no, what if he did say there's a Imperial recruitment building facility, whatever, in Mos Eisley,
and they're like, "What's your name, Luke? Luke, I'm alone. Luke Solo."
I don't think there'd be an Imperial because, like, I mean, Tatooine. Its whole thing is that it's in the Outer Rim.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's completely like regulated by the Hutts and things. And Vader hates Tatooine. Like,
true.
I don't think that he would sanction. And there's no way that Palpatine would want Vader to be going back to like kind of try to reconnect and stuff like that. So I don't think like Tatooine would, I mean, at least from like an Imperial standard, they probably wouldn't be getting a lot of good recruits from Tatooine just because that's where a lot of the scum goes and they'd rather go like to other planets. But they're definitely like maybe like some planet that's nearby that like that's where the Imperial Academy's held. And that's like Tatooine has like a job shortage or something like that. So a lot of people try to leave.
Yeah, you said that like of course the Imperials would not want to be on Tatooine and like it's so far in the Outer Rim, but I'm thinking back like again like poetry, kind of it rhymes. What if like in episode 1 something happens, like an Imperial mission or something is like going wrong, they're damaged, they don't have enough fuel or something, so they have to do a emergency stop on Tatooine, and that's what gets Luke like into like he's aware of the Imperials now, and it's like that looks really cool. Like there's these guys that like were on this like badass mission and they had to like crash land here to like repair, but like their suits are like all different and new. I don't know.
What if Luke finds the crash Imperial pilots and tries to help them, and then they're like, hey, you should sign up for the Empire when you're old enough, kind of thing.
And maybe it's again, I love that in the new Star Wars stuff, we're seeing that it's not all like black and white entirely. So maybe at first Luke is like, they seem like decent people. And of course, what Luke eventually realizes they're bad because they like kill Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. So I don't think we have to worry about like him realizing that they're bad eventually, because that settles that in episode 4. So maybe like that's how Luke is tempted. He like helps these pilots or something and is like, hey, these guys aren't half bad. It'd be really cool to like talk about joining the Imperial Academy. Maybe.
Should Obi-Wan kill them in front of him?
No, I think that'd cause too much trauma, and that would be an event that Luke would remember.
Yes. Yeah, because he would see his lightsaber, and also I feel like that would cause more trouble with the Empire. Like they'd send like a search and rescue eventually, and
I think that the Imperial pilots should do something that Luke admires. So maybe you have like Luke's taking them back, and then they see like, oh, I don't know, like some Tusken Raiders like attacking some people that it's like, it looks like the Tuskens are being more hostile, whereas we've kind of learned more with Boba Fett, they may have just been like territorial and like the people could have been doing something wrong to the Tusken Raiders, and the Imperial pilots kind of like step in, shoot down the Tusken Raiders. It might have benefited them, like they might have been in the way kind of thing, and there was going to be inevitable that like Luke and the pilots were going to run into these Tusken Raiders. But that way it's like Luke kind of gains that admiration that like these Imperial pilots were able to do something like so heroic and like be heroes.
I'm trying to think also though, I remember the first interaction that Luke had with they like try to frame the Tusken Raiders, right? And then Obi-Wan's like they're more precise. So like I'm trying to think, we can't break it if like, was that the first time that Luke's encountered like the Imperials? Was that like maybe that's the first time he encountered like stormtroopers like foot soldiers. So maybe it's like a diplomatic like Imperial mission or something, or like it's a representative from the Empire that's like not a stormtrooper that has to shoot anything. Maybe I'm just trying, like, would that break if we do see like that scene? I like that idea, but would that break the scene when Obi-Wan's like only stormtroopers are so precise? Like, is Luke like, oh, I've never encountered that before? Or has he potentially?
Yeah, no, I guess I see what you're saying.
I do like the idea though of like some Imperial encounter that gets Luke interested in it.
Yeah.
And then instead of the Tuskens is more, well, Luke does show some knowledge of the Tusken Raiders in episode 4. Because I was like, if the Tuskens are the problem, potentially swap it out with like the Pike Syndicate or something that's like a true evil on Tatooine, and like the Imperials like they would have reason to attack because you have these illegal spice traders and stuff like that. But
it could be what was the dude's name? Machamp, the guy from Boba. It could be one of those guys again or something.
Like, I know you said they're not gonna have like a full Imperial like outpost on Tatooine, but what if it's like a spokesperson or like kind of like a motivational speaker that's coming and just trying to like get people that are interested to just like, if they want to volunteer, they can, because they're always in need of new workers. And Luke is like too young at this point to like volunteer, but maybe he's just like, oh, that's interesting. And that's like a way off where like puts the spark in him. I don't know. That kind of seems a little lame though. I like the idea of like a crashed ship. And like, I think maybe we should stick with that, but maybe again, just try to figure out how that could not break canon.
I do kind of like the diplomat or some other not pilot stormtrooper, like maybe like somehow it's like a special forces agent or something like that who doesn't rely on blaster fire or hand-to-hand combat. Like, I'm just trying to get out of like that whole, only stormtroopers are so precise kind of thing.
Well, let's just kind of rewind so we don't get stuck or anything, but Obi-Wan needs to transition from letting Luke go and being in protection of the Lars to being like his guardian and kind of watching over him. Luke, we're going to start to see his wanting to be a pilot and just being interested in the Empire through potentially crashed ship or like a ship that needs like repairs, just that happens to land on Tatooine, similar to in episode 1 when they needed to land on Tatooine. How does Obi-Wan see Luke is going down in the wrong path? And we can't have Obi-Wan being like protecting Luke, like, I'm not letting you go to the outside world. It needs to be like the outside world's trying to get to Luke and Obi-Wan stopping that. So maybe somehow with Luke, when he's getting interested, other parties are starting to take notice to him somehow. Is that a good summary of what we've got so far?
I think that's a pretty good summary.
We're on the right track.
What do you mean by other parties are getting interested?
I think Luke is just like in danger, and again, the Empire doesn't know about him, so we can't do that.
Maybe you just have some internal conflict in Tatooine, like not Empire related, so you still have that connection that Luke sees like the positive Empire experience, but not something that would draw the attention of the Empire. So maybe you might have like spice dispute, some bounty hunter dispute or something that like draws Luke into blaster fire or something like that doesn't involve Obi-Wan, doesn't involve the Empire. Maybe potentially Owen's there, and Owen like tries to protect Luke and realizes like cuts it really close, and he's
gets
like
injured or something.
Oh, that's exactly where I was thinking.
I need Obi-Wan to kind of help.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be exactly like Boba Fett though. Like, we shouldn't just do the Pikes again and like spice. Like, I think it should be, but it can't be Maul either, because Maul doesn't come until Rebels. Like, he doesn't know he's on Tatooine, so it just has to be some.
We also
like,
don't want to overuse Maul.
Yeah, very true.
We also got to think about the relationship in episode 4 in the beginning, right? Because it still is like, it's almost like Owen and Beru are like, again, they're still main line of defense. They're the first ones, but then Obi-Wan is also there. It's not just like he is Luke's protector. He knows of Obi-Wan, but he's not like going in and out, yada yada. My point is, I think it's a good idea to have Owen get hurt and for him to come to the realization that yes, it's okay to have Obi-Wan be more around and be a protector. Which we kind of got we got Owen to the point at the end of season 1 to be like, it's okay for Obi-Wan to be around. Okay.
I think we also got the end of season 1 of Owen being hurt. Because you see him like limping, and maybe like that's how he got his injury, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's really much in the sense of like Owen accepting that like Obi-Wan needs to be around. I think it's Obi-Wan, like, he needs to be the one that's like convinced that he needs to be around, because I think he's convinced he doesn't need to be around in this one. And so like, even like, again, I think if Owen doesn't want Obi-Wan around, Obi-Wan's not going to care. Like maybe Obi-Wan just is again from afar. So I don't think Owen is. I personally don't think Owen is. Like, we don't have to convince him that something like.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying Obi-Wan have come to the understanding that if something does happen to Owen, then he becomes the last line of defense. You get what I'm saying? So they both come to that understanding. It's not just Owen being like, okay, yeah, I want you here. It's Obi-Wan being like, Owen, you might not be fit to do this forever or until the boy's of age, you know?
I don't think Owen's necessary. I think he could be an additional component that we could add.
Yeah.
Again, not
I agree.
vital. But we could also just go back to what's driving Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon. We could go back to him and like that motivational factor and things like that. And like as Obi-Wan progresses in his training, like they start to realize together, because I mean Qui-Gon thought Anakin was the chosen one. So and again, for all intents and purposes, we're not considering the whole, Anakin is the chosen one kind of thing. You can have like that episode, like beginning like Obi-Wan Qui-Gon, then you get that Obi-Wan Quinlan Vos, and then you get some more Luke Empire interaction. And then you can come back to Obi-Wan Qui-Gon to kind of like bring that around. That's just another potential that like, I was like, wait, this is something right in front of us that we said right at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just think of like if like Kathleen like comes down to the sex dungeon and we were like, we have to pitch like right now. What would we pitch? We start out episode 1 with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon off-world training because Obi-Wan like completely was like, I can let go of Luke. He's off-world, and maybe in the beginning he like runs into Quinlan Vos. We see that happen in the first episode, and we again like see Obi-Wan kind of talking about like what's his purpose, and Quinlan Vos kind of opens up that discussion about like what his purpose is now that like the Jedi Order is kind of gone and everything. And so that like sets up that he needs to find his purpose and figure out what he's doing now that he's not watching Luke. And that he's not in the Jedi Order and like that now that he's like forgiven himself. So that's kind of like the beginning.
I think a good way for that first episode to cliffhang. Are we still going with like the Imperial crash landing thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that'd be a good cliffhanger for us to see the crash.
Oh, okay.
The troopers come out and you kind of get like the up down shot of like from Luke's perspective, like up, and you see like the troopers like kind of looking down on him.
All training with Qui-Gon, and we get a lot of like connections to like how he becomes a Force ghost and like think like just how that happens, and then Quinlan Vos and again establishing Kenobi needs to find his purpose, his new purpose, and then like cut back to Luke
witnessing the crash.
Witnessing the crash. Okay, that's episode 1. The next part
starts off with Luke and the troopers. Troopers are like trying to figure out the situation. Pretty much, they're like, Luke knows the lay of the land. How do we get off this desert planet? And Luke's like, okay, I'll
take you to Tashi Station.
So that sets up that journey. Now we can cut back to Obi-Wan doing Obi-Wan.
Do we need Obi-Wan in episode 2? Like, I feel like the main, like when Luke finds the crash pilots, that should be kind of like the majority of the episode, and like their interactions, them kind of building some kind of rapport.
Yeah. Do you think maybe episode 1 could be Kenobi? And also, just so it's not so random that it's like we just cut to Luke right at the end, maybe like intercut with like Luke again, like meeting his friends that we like hear about in Tashi Station, so that we like establish that he's in this story.
It's him going back home from Tashi Station that he finds the crash.
Right.
That could work.
Yeah.
What is Tashi Station? That's like just like a restaurant. Like how old is he here? Like 11 or 12?
I don't know. What's a power converter? Is that part of a speeder?
It's a motivator.
Okay, maybe it's like his friend's dad works at Tashi Station or something, and so like they hang out there or something. All right, so that's episode 1. Like they kind of cut in between, and then the end with Luke there. So Luke in episode 2 is like building rapport with like these Imperials, and we're kind of seeing it's kind of like in mystery almost, like what's up with these guys, like and we're also just tense because like he's seeing like Imperial guys, and maybe it's again not stormtroopers, maybe it's like people on like a stealth mission, so they're not in stormtrooper gear, or maybe they're just like honestly like kind of like diplomats almost, where they don't have like any special combat training, but they have like basic knowledge. It's like better than like the average Tatooian or whatever, so that would impress Luke kind of thing.
Tatooian.
I like the fact that we don't find out immediately they're Imperials. I think that's an awesome component.
So that's
we just see a crash ship. Luke goes to find the crash ship, and then like you learn with some of their skills, like you see Luke fight, and then like maybe in the battle, like some piece of like their armor rips off or something, and you see the Imperial insignia.
Oh, because they were on a stealth mission, so they didn't want to show it at first.
Exactly. And then Luke is like, wait, you're Empire? And then they kind of like try to explain like the positive side of the Empire, and like because then Luke has that positive interaction,
and he's already kind of on board because he's maybe that's towards the end of the second episode is like that reveal, not like a cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Like I don't want to just keep doing cliffhangers, but like maybe after he's built for most of the episode like a rapport that rips off, and then kind of the end is like Luke being a little uneasy. But I think we should maybe have Kenobi in it a little bit, because I feel like Star Wars fans could be like, Kenobi wasn't in it. So like maybe it's like Kenobi wrapping up his training with Quinlan Vos and kind of deciding like, I need to find my purpose and figure just myself out. So maybe he's going to go back to Tatooine to do that. Maybe that's why he starts going back. Or like, is there another reason that he would go back, or is it just like I need to go back meditate?
Let's think about if you're Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Right?
Hello there.
What things are clouding your judgment?
Just unknowing, like you don't know what you want to do in life. I think that's just really, really relatable, like a relatable theme, like in life.
So where do you draw to then from that? I don't know what I'm doing now. So maybe you think about, okay, what have I done before? Okay, I used to be a Jedi before. That doesn't work. So that's why he holds his current stance. Okay, so if being a Jedi doesn't work, so what and who can I go to? I guess you can make him go back to Tatooine.
Or maybe plot twist: Obi-Wan goes back to Tatooine to kind of like as like a jump port to his next spot, goes to a cantina, finds Dex.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's ultimate fan service right there.
Episode 2, we just know, we don't have to, again, this is just like an outline pitch. Maybe we don't have to have everything exactly figured out, but so we know Obi-Wan gets back to Tatooine, and then Luke is like in cahoots right now with these Imperials. So episode 3.
Well, here's the thing too. Does he just like check in? I feel like he's just checks in on Luke every now and then too, because now that he's met him, I think it's okay for him to just come in. So that could be the motive there, and that could then lead into him now going to talk to like Owen and Beru.
Maybe
they'd be like, "Where's he at?" And they're like, "We don't know."
Maybe Luke, like, because he knows the secret that they're like the flap came down and they're the Imperials. Luke is like keeping that secret from Owen and Beru and Ben if he ever comes back to check in, and like Obi-Wan can like sense like he's hiding something, or
maybe when the Imperials leave, they're like, hey, think of the Empire. They like flip him a coin or something, or some like Imperial
credits
item. Well, maybe not credits, because I feel like credits could get passed around to Tatooine, but like maybe some old medal or something Empire related, and then Luke kind of like keeps that hidden, and then one day, like, I don't know, when Beru's cleaning, she finds it, gives it to Owen, and then Owen kind of like relays that to Ben to kind of like give that, so that Ben kind of figures it out without interacting with Luke as much. You know? And that kind of like brings up Owen's concern a little bit more, and kind of gives Obi-Wan some more motivation to be like, hey, I need to watch out more, because the Empire's calling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but so when Obi-Wan like gets that coin or whatever it is that from Owen, is he still? I feel like he still has to be like, well, Owen, you've got this kind of thing. Like I think we need to have some, maybe it's shown like what you were saying, Daniel, like it's shown that like Owen doesn't have it or something. I don't know. We need some like emotional like moment. Like I think the peak should be Obi-Wan like realizing that he needs to stay, and like what is that moment that like he realizes that he needs to stay. I don't think it should be episode 2 when he realizes there are Imperials nearby. You know what I mean? Like maybe do the Imperials like do something? Or
that's the thing. I think Luke has taken the Imperials to Tashi Station, Owen and Beru don't know where he's at because he's doing that. It's like the next morning or something. I guess they're just camping out there or something for the night. I don't know. In the morning, they'll then go to the spaceport or whatever, right? So that's why Luke's just going to stay with them instead of traveling in the night. We can say that.
The Imperials are going to go to the spaceport? Okay.
Yeah, so that goes to the next day. Owen and Beru don't know where Luke is. Obi-Wan shows up and he's like, where's he at? And they're like, can you find him? And he's like, okay, I can find him. So then episode 2 is a mix of that. It's of Luke getting the Imperials to Tashi.
No, I think that's episode 3 you're talking about.
Sorry, yeah, 3. The Imperials getting to the spaceport, and then also Obi-Wan tracking Luke.
Okay. I think we should maybe talk about this more a bit later. We've been talking for a while. I think Kathleen's coming down. Have an outline. I think we should just like picture what we got.
I think we've got at least solid 2 episodes.
We do. So yeah, episode 1, it starts with Kenobi training with Qui-Gon on another planet off-world, maybe the planet where Yoda connect with all those Force beings. Luke is like just living his life at Tashi Station. This is a lot tougher than that was going to be. Good job, Star Wars writers. Quinlan Vos comes to Obi-Wan and they train, talk about like maybe Maul for a little bit, like to have some hints of what happens in Rebels. Luke comes across this crash just on his own. And then episode 2, it kind of works out that Luke helps these guys out, starts like looking up to them a little bit because they're just like off-worlders and they're like different. They're from this star speeder, like spaceship that's like really cool. He hasn't like seen a lot of it. He's like asking questions maybe about like the buttons and stuff, and they're like helping him out. And then Obi-Wan kind of like makes his way home. And then towards the end of episode 2, it's revealed that these guys are Imperials. Again, this can all be changed and adjusted. This is just a first draft, whatever, Kathleen. Sorry. I think that's, I mean, we have a good, just solid pitch. It's like beginning, this is where he's at, end, this is where he's at. He has to like get to there kind of thing. Like he has to devote his entire life to protecting Luke. And something with like the Imperials getting kind of close and maybe some danger happens, like convinces him of that. So some emotional arc with that. Yeah. I know we didn't get as far as like we wanted to, but yeah, we've been talking for a while. Are you guys okay kind of wrapping up here-ish? I know it feels a little unsettling, but...
Hey, I mean, sometimes that's how the world works. You don't finish everything in just one episode of a podcast. Yeah. Sorry, listeners.
Or the first draft.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, let us know what you think of just the beginning ideas we've had of this. I think we had some good ideas, I think. I enjoyed talking to you guys about this.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, agreed. It was a really good time.
All right. Well, maybe we'll flesh it out another day. We'll see. But yeah, Kathleen, can we leave the sex dungeon? Let us know in the comments below.
She only lets... Okay, if she was to only let one of us leave, who would she let go? In the comments, you guys let us know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll jump into the next segment. All right, well, thank you, Matt, for joining us. Yeah, next segment. Boosh, rather main segment. We're back.
Yes.
I had a little bit of technical difficulties, and it's actually the second time recording this, so apologies about that. Maybe the second time's a charm, you know, what they always say, and let's be that much better. So if we stumble, you can make fun of us even more, because it's the second time we're stumbling. Yeah, so a little post-banter news. So did you hear about the new Netflix movie the Russo brothers are producing next after The Gray Man? I mean, now you have.
Now I have, but okay, again, this is our second take. So no, I haven't. What's going on with that?
So it's called The Electric State, and it's based on a sci-fi like illustrated novel. And in the story, a teenage girl navigates through the American West that is kind of reminiscent of like a retro future, and she's accompanied by a mysterious but sweet robot and a drifter, kind of in search for her younger brother. Millie Bobby Brown is attached to play the teenage girl, and apparently Chris Pratt is in talks to also star in the movie. It's not confirmed what he is, so maybe he's like the voice of the robot or the drifter.
It needs to give me My Life as a Teenage Robot vibes.
Yeah.
I swear.
So the Russos are partnering with Netflix again, and the reported budget is over $200 million. I mean, with Netflix like losing subscribers, like, can they afford to do this?
Let's just put it on the Russos. You know?
Yeah.
Honestly, if there's anywhere you're going to put them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a good investment right there.
All right, ready for Totally True Trivia Tidbits?
Yeah, hit me with them. What you got?
So I was watching the Thor's director's commentary and found out why there are so many Dutch angles in it.
Why are there so many?
So the director, Kenneth B., he was the director of the first Thor movie, and he said during the director's commentary that people actually warned him during production that he was doing too many Dutch angles. And so like a Dutch angle is kind of like a crooked frame. So he said the reason that he like decided to put in Dutch angles was because that's how he remembered the comics, like especially the Thor comics. And he said that the comic frames were so epic and so large that the artist would often draw like on an angle so that they could fit like the art in like more space, fill up the entire space, like if it was crooked. So he's trying to like do that with the film as well, which is like a cool concept on paper, but I just feel like there were way too many Dutch angles and it didn't really work. It just kind of made you feel uneasy a lot.
It's okay to have more than normal, don't get me wrong, but with how many there were in there, that was too much. If it was for like big action moments, I feel like it would have been better. Or for like the stoic moments of like Asgard, you know, stuff like that.
All right, ready to jump into Rank Rally, the next segment of the show?
Yes. Let me get my list up.
Give me your top 5 Star Wars themes from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, something I noticed too, there's just less scores in general in this one, you know?
Yeah.
There's only like 11. I don't know, it's felt weird because it's like the end of the trilogy, but also they all, I don't want to say they all hit, but like a lot of them were good, like really good. So with that said, my number 5 was Parade of the Ewoks, and the main reason for that is because it has like the essence of Endor, you know? I know a lot of people don't like Ewoks, but like has a feeling of Endor, like especially when we arrive there and the I don't know, the wispiness of it and like the
Gotcha.
jovial nature of it. So that's what I liked about it. Number 4 is the Force battle. And the reason this is my number 4 because it has utility across media. That's the big thing with me.
Yes.
And it's also Endor. It has a huge feeling of Endor, but at the same time, it's also just very actiony and very.
It's in games, right?
Yeah, it has multiple uses there because of how actiony and punchy it is, right? So that's why I like that one.
Okay.
Number 3. You might be surprised by this because I think it's tough because the other ones, again, I'll explain, is Return of the Jedi.
Interesting.
The reason why I have that at number 3, for 2 reasons. One is the wah.
The freaking beats at the beginning, like the Family Guy spoof that like made fun of it. It's being
dude,
so many
I love
and
that
ridiculously
joke
long.
so much. It just keeps on going and keeps on going into that Family Guy bit. It was just so good.
And then it gets into the like heroic theme later.
Yeah.
That heroic theme, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's because of both of those reasons that's my number 3. My number 2 is the Emperor's theme. Like I said before, like in our first take, that is the theme itself makes you feel like you're in a large, dark room and like you're just surrounded by something sinister. It just feels sinister just listening to it. So yeah, that's why it's my number 2. It's important to understand like the presence and the power of the Emperor. That score does it so well.
The Emperor is like, I mean, the baddest of bads, like the villain above Darth Vader. So like in this theme, like reflects that.
My number 1 is Into the Trap.
Really?
For a couple reasons. 1, it's a trap.
Oh, freaking! I misread that and I put it on my list as Into the Tap. I was like, what is that? This makes more sense. Okay.
Again, this just makes me think of Star Wars for multiple reasons because there's multiple points in this score to where it's seen again a lot of games. I think in Lego Star Wars like instantly.
That's a good list, dude.
It feels like very like I don't want to say like spy, but I believe this is also a theme that plays like when they're doing like some stealth stuff, you know. So it just feels like very like, hey, we're rebels, hey, we're doing our thing, you know. And I like that.
All right. I'm going to go through my top 5 Star Wars themes from Return of the Jedi from Episode 6. So my number 5 is Force Battle as well. I mean,
nice.
It's very tense and very good at building suspense. This film is like the culmination of like this trilogy and like eventually the first 6 films. And so like my list here has like a lot of suspenseful like building scores to that. It's not really, I don't have like a lot of calm scores on here.
Are you saying Lapti neck isn't calm?
Hold on. My number 4 is Into the Trap, not Into the Tap, as I originally read it. It's another one that's kind of like an amalgamation and like of echoes of different themes, but it like stands out on its own. And like the tension that's building is done extremely well, but like the nostalgia of like feeling like a classic Star Wars score. Lots of interesting like, percussion throughout. My number 3 is The Return of the Jedi. You were like, I don't think you're gonna really get why I did this one for my number 3.
I thought you would have
said my number 3. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it did just like the freaking unnecessarily large amount of beats as they all like suspensefully look at each other. But all jokes aside, then like the triumphant theme that comes in afterwards is like pretty epic and fun. Yeah. So my number 2 is the Emperor as well. Is the Emperor, and so. Tidbit that I found out thanks to our TikTok comments, but the Emperor's theme, you know, Aki's band in episode 1, like this end celebration, that is actually a reworking of the Emperor's theme. They transposed this theme up like to a major key and sped it up, and it's the same thing. So I think that's a really cool like symbolism and just like foreshadowing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, my number 1 is not on the original list from the original 1980 whatever release of Return of the Jedi. It is from the 1997 re-release. It's Jedi Rocks. So would you mind pulling up a new tab and pulling up Jedi Rocks?
I was gonna say, is it the
Yeah, dude. It's again, it's not in the original score, but it was in the 1997 re-release. It used to be like the Lapti neck, I think. It's a bop. Dude, I'm not even joking. If this came on at like a club, I would be living. It's just like a funky jazz like version. I'm not even kidding. Like this is amazing.
I can only imagine you at the club. This goes on. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, but that's my list.
That's a good list. It's a good list.
I'm just jamming now. All right, you ready to jump into the next segment? Patron shoutouts.
Yeah, hit me with them.
Cue Epic Stars music, boosh! We have Patron Lori, Frank, Rick, Lisa, Evan, Tony. Thank you so much for pledging the tier. They can see the shout out. Thank the sports over Patreon. Link is down in the description. Get the audio episode early. Special benefits, cool perks. all the jazz and more. Thank you seriously to our Patreon supporters. Really appreciate it. Yeah, if you want to head on over to Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a review. We really appreciate that. Or a comment on our YouTube channel. That would be great. Thank you. Ready for the introduction?
Yep, tell me when.
When?
We just talked about whatever we want to talk about, and now we're done. Play.
Thank you so much for listening. We seriously, genuinely, really do appreciate it. We'll be back next week for a very special episode. There's actually something huge planned if all goes according to plan. Yeah. We're talking about Thor Love and Thunder, which you could probably guess through our just the schedule when things come out. But there's a twist to it. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. Actually, subscribe for that. It's really interesting. All right. See you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.